This week, we'll be going over all of the achievements in Loop Hero. You guys have seen some other videos about specific achievements with the game from me, but today, we are completely finishing it. The game has 50 achievements, which ended up taking me about 62 hours to get all of them done. And now, let's get into it. Starting out, you'll get New Beginning for embarking on your first expedition. You'll just need to start up a new game, get through the tutorial, and go on your first run. Then of course, during your first run, you'll get First Blood for killing 5 enemies, and First Time for when you die the first time. Next we have Foundation Stone for building the first camp structure. You should be able to do this after that first run. Then we have Practically a Job for embarking on your 10th expedition, and Go-Getter for embarking on your 50th expedition. You'll naturally get these as you try to go through the other achievements, and you'll also get Groundhog Day for dying 10 times while you go through that. A lot of these are going to mainly be based around grinding your way there, so we'll keep going through those first and then get into the more detailed ones. Part of the world is for finding 100 resources, and can't get it back is for losing 100 resources. It'll only count losing or finding resources when you leave an expedition, and it gets added to your camp storage. As you find more and more resources, you'll also eventually get Make a Puzzle for finding all possible types of resources. You can double check where you are with this using the encyclopedia. Speaking of the encyclopedia, you'll unlock that by building the library building. Once you have that, you can get Scholar for unlocking a chapter in the encyclopedia. This is essentially using a book of memories to get some additional lore on the encyclopedia entries. Then later you can get Observer for unlocking 50 chapters in the encyclopedia, and Bookworm for unlocking all of the chapters in the encyclopedia. Then Lost Count is for killing 1,000 enemies. Next we have Cardsharp for placing 1,000 cards. And then Bartender Refill for drinking 50 potions. You'll unlock potions after building the Herbalist's Hut building. Then Around the World is for completing 100 loops. What's Not Tied Down you can get for getting 5 camp items. You'll be able to start finding or crafting these once you build the Supply Depot building. Speaking of crafting items, you can get From Dust and Sticks for crafting 5 items, and Handyman for crafting 25 items. Eventually you'll also be able to get Collector for getting all of the camp items. The way I'd go about this is check your encyclopedia page for items and determine what you're missing out of these, and then craft items until you get them. While you're going through this, you'll likely have a lot of extra ones that you won't be using. You can dismantle these items for resources, which also leads to Easier Than Making for dismantling 5 items, and Barbarian for dismantling 10 items. Then we have Hole in Memory for dismantling a camp structure. This can be done by selecting a building and clicking the option to delete it on the right side. Next is Small Talker for reading 50 different dialogues. You'll get this as you progress through the story and come across each of the different enemy types. For Trickster, you'll need to unlock the Rogue class. You can do this by building the Refuge building. And Grandma Says Hello is for unlocking the Necromancer class. You can do this by building the Crypt building. And while we're on the topic of building in the game, we might as well go over Always Been Here for building the river, and Small Town for building all of the possible camp structures. Once you build the Alchemist Hut, you can also start doing alchemy. That is going to lead you into Alchemist's Apprentice for transmuting 5 resources into hydrogen, Don't Breathe It In for transmuting 50 resources into hydrogen, Not Gold for synthesizing 5 resources with alchemy, and Still Not Gold for synthesizing 100 resources. Transmuting is destroying and synthesizing is creating. Moving on to the boss related achievements, we have Just Starting Out for defeating the Lich, Punching Bag for defeating him 3 times, Glass Queen for defeating the Priestess, Faith alone is not enough for defeating her 3 times, For Whom the Horn Tolls for defeating the Hunter, Hunter's Nightmare for defeating the Hunter 3 times, Memory Pieces for defeating Omega, and Godslayer for defeating Omega 6 times. I found that the easiest class to use for this was the Necromancer. Basically just prioritize getting a high attack speed, at least 4 or 5 max skeletons, as high of a skeleton level as you can get, and a skeleton summon quality of at least 40 or 50%. Another one that you can get involving the bosses is In Time for Lunch for defeating the boss in the first expedition. I go over this in depth in a separate video as it's not the easiest achievement to do. Then we have Anew for filling the whole map. That means fill every tile on the track, next to the track, and all the tiles on the outside. For trophy collection, you'll need to kill each enemy. This is another one that I made a video going over specifically as there's a lot to it. Then Fence for getting 10 orange items in exchange for the trophies in camp. For this, you'll need to be the rogue and make sure not to pick the picky trait, as that will prevent you from being able to get this achievement. Then you'll need to keep going through loops, stacking up trophies, and hope that you get lucky and get 10 orange items. For Tripped, you'll need to die outside of battle. The easiest way to do this is to pick the Blissful Ignorance trait and use it as you're standing over a swamp. While you're in the swamp, anything that gains health is actually going to cause you to lose health. And with the Blissful Ignorance perk, you're going to gain 10% of your health every time you use an Oblivion card. So you'll need to pause the game while standing on a swamp, and use your Oblivions to destroy tiles until you die. Next we have See the World and Not Die, for seeing all of the possible tiles. This is another one that you can check by looking at the encyclopedia to figure out which tiles you're missing. Then for Undying, you'll need to die and resurrect 3 times in one expedition. In order to do this, you'll need to get the Cemetery upgraded to level 2 for 1 charge, use the Ancestral Crypt Golden card, and get the Omicron's Technique perk. Each of those will give you an extra resurrection charge, and after you use all 3 in one run, you'll get the achievement. For Crunchy Company, you'll need to have 10 living skeletons in one battle as a Necromancer. Now to get this, you're going to want your max skeleton count as high as possible and your attack speed also as high as possible. Then place down a few cemeteries so that those can fill out the rest of the skeletons needed for you to reach 10. If you're on chapter 3 or later, you can also get archer skeletons added into adjacent battles, making it even easier. Lastly, we have Broken Geography for placing 10 cards that you didn't have in your deck, not counting Oblivions. In order to make this happen, you'll need to be on chapter 2 or later and have battlefields in your deck. You have a 20% chance for enemies with the Living Soul trait to turn into a ghost when it dies in range of a battlefield, a 20% chance for a ghost to then turn into a ghost of a ghost, and then a 20% chance for the ghost of a ghost to turn into a prime matter when it dies. And on chapter 2 or later, prime matters will have the ability to drop cards from outside of your deck. So you'll need to get 10 of those and place them all down to get this achievement. It can take quite a while to do this. For me, it ended up being about a 3-hour run of grinding this out to finally get it. And with that, we now have 100% of the achievements in Loop Hero. We also now have memberships enabled on YouTube, so if you'd like to join, you can get the benefits of having custom emojis in the comments, being featured in a credit section at the end of videos, and just supporting the channel in general. Also, be sure to come by the community Discord to hang out and play some games. And as always, if you liked the video or found it helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below with what games you'd like me to cover next.